Before we start, Dad, I just wanted to give a shout out because we recently passed the Trans Day of Visibility, and
Oh, you want to talk about that?
yeah. Is there a problem?
Yeah, there's a problem. I had to hear about it all that day last week and a couple days surrounding it. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody wants me to go back and revisit these terrible Michael Bay movies.
Dad,
I didn't like them the first time around. It's sensory overload. And then they make this Bumblebee movie. Is that what we're supposed to be watching too? Because I didn't even like the first ones. Shia LaBeouf was not remedied by Mark Wahlberg. It's not better casting. And what the hell is John Turturro doing in these movies?
Dad.
I don't want them to be visible to me anymore.
It's not Transformers Day.
Wait, what?
It's the day of visibility for transgender people.
Wait.
No one is celebrating the Michael Bay movies.
The transgender people?
Yes.
Not the Transformers?
No Transformers.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm all for that. Yeah. Go ahead and shout that out. Hello and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. I am Phil Rude. I'm the dad.
I'm Austin Rude, and I'm the son. Every week we watch a movie, and then we get on the mic to talk about it.
We do indeed. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Are you up to anything this week?
Outside of work, I've been trying to get caught up on episode art. I'm a couple weeks behind getting the YouTube videos posted.
Okay.
But I'm actually behind on a lot of stuff. But while I've been working this week, I have managed to watch a few things. I've watched more movies in this week than I have in a long time.
Well, that's productive in a way.
In a way, it's a lot of stuff that I've kind of wanted to check out, and so some of the prelim drawings I've been able to do. I watched my cousin Ben has a new movie coming out later this year.
Really? That he made?
He wrote and directed. And it's called Movers Ultimate. He sent me a rough cut of it probably a month or two ago. And I finally made some time to sit down and watch it. It's a pretty sweet little project. It's a cool comedy that he's got coming out, really different from his kind of darker.
I saw his
movie.
last work.
Don't Run. Yep.
Right. Wait, was that the cop one, or was there one before that?
No. Maximum Coppage was a. He and his producing partner were trying to get that funded, and they had like a short.
Like a pilot?
Like a proof of concept kind of thing that they were pitching. It's really, really good. I really wish. But Maximum Coppage actually shows up in Don't Run, Ben's first feature. It's the movie that the kid is watching throughout it.
Cool.
There's just like little scenes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And I think we're going to try and talk to Ben when that movie is coming out and just talk to him about making it and stuff like that.
I'd love to.
And then I watched an old Humphrey Bogart movie that's on HBO Max right now. It's called The Maltese Falcon. It's an old film noir detective movie. Really, really good. I watched it and almost immediately I was like, I should have saved this for the show. Like, and we may circle around back to it.
You can watch a movie twice.
For sure. But I just, but I was also like happy to watch a movie and not have to do a book report on it and just sort of like enjoy watching this old movie,
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, actually super great, detective movie. Some really good performances in it, a great mystery story. And also it's one of those movies that's old enough that it's still like, it's quaint and funny in a way. Like certain parts of it they just come off as a little bit silly. Not MST3K, not B movie silly where you would sit there and tear it apart, but just something that you just,
but still kind of cheesy.
You just kind of, you just kind of have to laugh at it a little bit and just go, oh, okay. But, Yeah, really, really a cool movie. I can't recommend enough. If you like old black and white film noir, The Maltese Falcon is a classic, and
It was such a cool name.
yeah, it's got this whole. I mean, it is about just a quick rundown. It's about people looking for this bird from Malta that has it's an artifact that has been lost to time. You know, this little sculpture that's supposed to be priceless, and it's all these people looking for it.
So that's kind of like the driving force.
Yeah, there's like a murder that kicks off the search for this thing. And it's a movie I saw when I was really young, and I couldn't follow it. I don't remember anything about it, so I was really happy to watch it now and really appreciate it. So it's a great movie that I really had a good time with.
That's cool.
What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I did watch one movie this week.
Okay.
I watched Zathura. This was in anticipation for me showing up on David and Nick's Hit Me One More Time podcast.
David Luzader's show, yeah.
That's right.
How did it go? Did you have fun?
Yeah, a lot of fun. The premise, if you don't know, is that they take something you have nostalgia for, you bring it to them, and as a group, you kind of watch it, you go over it, and then you see, is this actually good, or is it something that you just have a strong attachment to? And does that matter?
It's a super fun show. I've been on it a couple of times, and I'm glad you got. Don't spoil where you guys came out on it.
Yeah, it should be coming out the same week as this episode.
Oh, cool.
So,
check your podcast feeds for Hit Me One More Time for
this
sure.
week or next week.
Yeah.
I don't know where the schedule.
It'll be. It should come out like the day after this episode comes out.
Awesome.
So
okay, please check that out because I think we had a really cool discussion.
Zathura is a movie I haven't seen since you guys were little and you used to watch it.
I was obsessed with it.
You guys watch it a lot.
I liked it more than Jumanji, which is
Jumanji.
funny because
yeah. The thing I remember most about Zathura is that Tim Robbins did like a lot of press for it. He was like on all these radio shows that I was listening to. And
who's Tim Robbins?
He plays the dad. He's like barely in the movie, but he's like also the biggest name in the movie. So he had to do all the press for it.
Well, this movie is how I was introduced. What's the...
Dax Shepard.
Dax Shepard, right? Yeah. That's how I was introduced to him, and then he's in Parenthood and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's before all of that, so...
Yeah.
Really cool. I'm really looking forward to...
So that was exciting. And then on my downtime this week, I actually discovered a new show. Well, it was one I knew existed, but I hadn't really touched it. It's called Good Girls. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it, and I've seen parts of a couple episodes.
Okay, it's a drama comedy.
It's like a crime.
Yeah, three moms, they rob a grocery store and then they get involved. But really good characters. The actresses are great.
Christina Hendricks was the reason I was really...
Who is that? The blonde one?
I think she's the main one. I don't know if she's blonde in the show or not. She was on Mad Men.
I know who you're talking. She's the one actress that I actually don't know what she's from.
Yeah,
because the other two I know. There's one of them is from Parks and Rec, and she's hilarious. And then the other one, she's from Parenthood, but she played the daughter in Parenthood, and now she's playing a mother, but almost the same character.
That's Mae Whitman from Avatar.
That's right. Yeah,
she
plays
Katara. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
so it's always fun to see her. And
there's a good cast to it, which I remember it caught my eye when it came out. I'm like, oh, Christina Hendricks is in something. I don't watch a lot of network TV.
Right. I found it on Netflix. It's definitely a show aimed for middle-aged women.
Yeah.
But I love it. The drama is fun, and it's a good show to watch.
Yeah, it's a it reminds me tonally of Weeds.
See,
Did you ever watch Weeds?
That's the reason I didn't watch it, because I watched the pilot for Weeds and I was like, this show sucks.
Weeds does suck.
And then, so I stayed away from all of the ads for this show, and now they have up to 3 seasons.
It's been on longer than I had anticipated it being on. But
I would compare it to, like, Dead to Me. Do you know that Netflix show?
I do. I've seen the first season. I really like it. I just haven't.
It's got drama, comedy, and feminism. So, like, it's got all of those things.
It's sort of like a suburban white mom empowerment show, kind of.
This is, like, vicariously living through badass women.
Right.
They go to PTA, but they also sell drugs. So it's fun.
Okay, now do you understand my mob movie thing where I say you can live vicariously through these people? It doesn't mean that you necessarily want to be these people.
Oh my god. What does it say about me that I only like it when it's about middle class white people?
It means that you can probably identify with a suburban lifestyle, and those shows also have to do with, like, the boredom of living in suburbia.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's kind of like breaking down those stereotypes, and also, like, I don't know, they keep it morally ambiguous. It's like, yes, they're robbing people, but they're also trying to raise money for this dying child. So it's like,
well, that is, in a sense, I think, what a good mob or crime movie or show can do. Not necessarily morally ambiguous. You never think that Walter White is doing something good. But if they can show you enough of his humanity that you can kind of even stretch yourself to see where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm. I like it when they really push that sometimes.
Yeah, and I think a mob movie, a traditional mob movie, really does that, where someone like Tom Hanks in Road to Perdition, you know?
Yeah.
He's just a straight up murderer. Like, that's all he is, and he doesn't deny that that's what he is. But he's also trying to... He also loves his family. You know, like, and they show that. And that's where connections are for those, as opposed to something that is just like, oh, here, we're just going to showcase a monster. Something like Scarface, the Al Pacino movie, Scarface, which is beloved. Everybody, like, that's their go-to mob movie. I think Scarface is the most overrated movie of all time. And I think Tony Montana is, like, not a character you should click with at all. There's nothing redeeming about that character at all.
Right.
Like, you know, he's just a straight up...
mountains of cocaine.
Yes, he's just a straight up monster through the whole thing. He's a greed monster. And, I think that's the difference for me.
Well, there's an audience for it somewhere.
There is. And I think 3 seasons of Good Girls proves that. You know what I mean? Like, that people are watching it, and people are probably the Netflix numbers are pretty good for it too.
Because it showed up because it was one of those ones that was trending.
Yeah. So
I tapped into
getting a lot of play. Well, cool. Maybe I will eventually look into that.
I don't know. You might like it. I feel like it's a little generic for you. Okay. I don't know.
Well, that's a lot of why I don't watch network TV very much, because even when a show has a good idea, sometimes it's just kind of presented. I think network TV, they want the biggest audience, so they tend to trim a lot of the rough edges off. They're like, we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to take things too far.
We got to get from the most groups as possible.
They kind of try to shoot down the middle, and sometimes it's fine. You know,
yeah.
It's just, usually not quite as
daring.
It doesn't quite push an edge as far as like some other shows do.
Yeah, but, I still think it's a good one.
I think that's great. I think it's cool. But what else did we watch this week?
Well, we watched this episode.
This was your pick, right?
Yeah. This week I subjected us to the 2019 Netflix original called I.O. This is a philosophical science fiction movie, and it follows Sam Walden and Mika, or Micah.
Micah.
Sorry, as they try to make their way to the last ship leaving an apocalyptic Earth behind. This movie stars Margaret Qualley and Anthony Mackie, along with Tom Payne as the voice of Elon. And it's written by Clay Jeter, Charles Spano, Will Basanta, and it was directed by Jonathan Helpert. So those are the people responsible for this movie. My dad may want to take up those names for some sort of hit list.
Well, I was really excited that Jonathan Halpert is doing some interesting things since leaving Dunder Mifflin, but then I saw this movie. I'm like, he may want to go back to paper sales.
That's one of Jim's brothers. That bullies Pam. Yeah. Okay, so first off, I want to point out the most obvious thing, which is that
this movie's not good.
It's not a great movie. Is it a good movie? That's the question I wanted to figure out.
No, it's not.
That can be your answer, but
okay, we'll see you next time. Just playing. Go.
I want to contain the negativity, so I want to lead the discussion in talking about what this movie aimed for and the concepts that it's trying to introduce, because some of them are really good, and I think what this movie does good, it does great, and then we can talk crap about it, because I hate a lot of things about this movie too, and it sucks because it's one of those things where I see the potential in this movie, and I want it to be so much better than it is, but they just missed the mark. And so I kind of look crazy when I go, hey, this is a good movie, kind of.
Well, your attitude about this movie makes me curious as to why you chose it, because you don't seem to enjoy this movie very much either. I really expected you to not be mad at me, but when this movie was over and my initial the Netflix thing came up and said, you can also watch Saving Private Ryan. And I go, oh, look, it's a less depressing movie than this, and I expected you to snark back at me and defend this movie because you'd seen it before and you chose to watch it again. And you'd seen it before and you wanted to share it with me. So I really thought that you saw more redeeming things in this movie. And then to hear you talk about it, you're like, no, you're right. It's not very good. And it's like, why did you choose to watch? And I'm not, I know you have your reasons for it. And that's what I'm getting to. I'm not bagging on you for choosing it. I want to know, what nuggets in this movie made you want to revisit it, even on your own, just to watch it again?
This is almost therapy, because I watched this movie right when it came out. I had been waiting for it. I saw the trailer. I was ready for this movie. And then I saw it, and parts of it, which we will get into, frustrated me so much that I was like, I need to make Dad watch this so that I can rant
my dad, and I'm going to get back at him for grounding me when I was 13.
I needed you to understand what I did not like so that I could vent about it. But then time went on, and I forgot about it. And now I wanted to come back to it and see if maybe I had just had this, assumption as I watched the movie. And then when the movie went in a different direction, you know how that can sometimes, block you and be like, this is a bad movie, when really it's just not the movie you were writing in your head.
Right.
So I wanted to see that, and no. It's just not great.
Did this movie subvert your expectations in any way, though, the first time through? Because I found this movie to be... I could have written it 30 seconds ahead of everything that happened in this movie.
Wow.
I found this movie insanely formulaic and predictable.
It's really the relationship between the two main characters. Because I see... I get that the character Sam is growing up and, the story is kind of about her. But, with Micah, right?
Micah.
I don't know why.
Hard I, yeah.
When I read it, it's a different name.
Just like I-O,
right. Micah.
Use your words.
I saw him as a stand-in father figure. That's where I thought this movie was going, and then it turned into a romance, and a bad one at that, and I was just like so off-put by it. I was like, there's got to be another layer to this, and then it just never came. But I still think the message about science and humanity in this movie is really good.
Sure. I mean, there's themes to a movie, and those themes can be solid, but that they also don't make a movie good. You can't build a movie just on theme, and I don't know. Like there is a.
But do you think they did a bad job of building it into the like? I think the like fixation on the art museum is like brilliant. Like I thought that was a great way to tie in like mythology and how she's sort of examining humanity's role in the planet and like what is next. Because she's trying to decide to stay on Earth or to leave with the rest of humanity to find a new home.
Right. Yeah, no, I get what she's doing.
Right.
I feel like the museum stuff, it felt forced. I feel like there was maybe a draft of this where that wasn't a part of it. I don't know, I'm speculating. But this is what it feels like. Like there was a draft of this movie where that was not written in. There was no aspect of that. And then they were like, well, there has to be some thing she wants because she obviously doesn't want to leave Earth. And so then it almost feels like an afterthought, and then they just kind of peppered it throughout.
I mean,
none of that stuff is what I didn't like about this movie.
I think for stuff like that, I think finding out this movie was written by 3 people, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because it's definitely not one vision. Like, this movie kind of is being pulled in different directions.
Well, let's talk about the themes of this movie. And here's what it felt like to me. Like, this was probably make like a very interesting, maybe short film, but probably a more interesting like short story that tackles these themes and is about this person being isolated on Earth as one of the last people on Earth. And what does that mean to her? And what is she trying to accomplish? And what is she learning about the Earth? And when they tried to expand it into a feature-length script, it just gets padded out with all of these other things that are a drag. None of this was interesting. Like, my bottom line for this movie is nothing that happened in this movie got its hook in me. Nothing. Like, I didn't connect to any of the characters. I thought both actors had no charisma. Their characters had no charisma. They had no chemistry together on either a father figure daughter level or a romantic level. Just nothing about this connected with me. I thought this was just a drawn out, boring, slightly poetic dissertation about the Earth will survive. Well, big no shit. Like, people are dying. The Earth doesn't die. Like that. And they say that as one of the first lines in this movie is she's, doing her little logbook, whatever, when she's taking samples.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I think you're right. I think you're right, Dad. The Earth isn't dying. It's being reborn. And it's like, of course, that's like every scientist would know that, like that life is going to continue just in another form. And I just, that's not where the movie lost me. I still was trying to hang in with it. All of it just seemed very forced and very.
But that's not what they're trying to prove. They're not just trying to prove that, life on Earth will continue, because everyone knew that to begin with, but it's human life can still continue on
Right.
Earth. But we as a society have to change. Like, not about biology. Our function on Earth has to change to be the caretakers of the land.
See, and I don't think that part of it was never like. I didn't even feel like that was a key part of the movie. Like the human function on Earth was to be caretakers of it. I never feel like that came across.
That might be just me then.
I mean, no,
they mention things that hint at it, but
yeah, but it just, I don't know. This felt like like the Godzilla, all the kaiju stuff, this wave of science fiction in like the 50s and 60s, post World War II, that was all about, the nuclear age. And these were like these metaphors and these sort of statements about atomic energy and the, this is very dangerous kind of thing.
right.
I feel like now we are in the era of sci-fi that is lecturing us about the environment. And there are, I think, good ways to do that. And then there are just heavy-handed lectures about it. And I think this is a heavy-handed lecture about the environment. Something like Wall-E, which I think is also, it's not light-handed, but it's entertaining and it connects with you on the same. Wall-E is essentially, let's compare them because they're very similar in the setup. Humanity has left Earth.
Right.
Here's
the same
last
story.
Yeah, here's the last thing on Earth, and yes, it's about, are we able to recover from this? And
But that's the thing, is Wall-E is more interested in talking about, like, just the basic environment. Like, that is... But this movie is trying to broach it on a deeper level. It fails at that.
right.
Like, I'm very aware of that, but, like, it tried. Like, that is...
I don't know. I think
boring and it's slow. But that originally had a point. It lost its point somewhere in production. Like, they meant to fill that space with a lot more value and substance, and it kind of didn't pan out that way. But, like, there's nuggets there.
There's nuggets there, but without really making them point. I mean, it's just like we were just talking about with crime movies and crime stories. Like, if you don't connect on a human level with these characters, then you're probably not going to connect to the movie. And that was just a big swing and miss for me, because there's two characters in this whole movie and I connected with neither of them. So
see, I connect with Sam like a little bit.
I wanted to connect with Sam. I really did. And I don't know. I don't want to come down on that actress, but it could just be her character was written poorly. It could just be the choices she made in playing that character, and that's how she read her. But just this monotone, boring, just no connection to her at all. I just didn't feel it.
Well, I saw her as like this, like she hasn't spoken to anyone in a year, like, and then before that she had her dad, and they both probably went crazy together. But like, I don't know, the parts that felt weird to me, like her characterization is fine up until the romance, because then she turns into this like. She goes from a brilliant scientist to she's like
to a sexual
teach me
predator.
About love.
Yeah.
What does this poem mean? Tell me about it, teacher. Like, it's just weird.
It is. Yeah, it is weird. I don't know. There's I'm trying to keep from just sitting here and complaining about this movie.
Right.
But I really did fail to find many redeeming qualities in this. Like, it's just the very opening, when they're kind of showing you her world and she's working with the bees and she's doing, I'm just sort of like, oh, this is kind of interesting. What's she doing? She's conducting experiments and this and that. And then it's just like, Oh, okay. This is a lighter version of the experiment. I mean, honestly, like, this is lifted from better movies. Like,
There is hints of The Martian in this.
yes. What
That
else?
is,
Come on, I know you see it.
I don't know what you're getting at.
Oh my God, I Am Legend is all over this
yes,
thing.
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, sure you were.
No, at one point
yeah.
it was gonna be something I brought up because that message of humanity evolving and the apocalypse and
Right. The Dead City. Okay, here's my redeeming quality. The Dead City looked amazing.
it's true.
Art direction of the shell of the city, I loved it. And I thought that was going to be the movie at the very beginning. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, we're in this life after people kind of thing.
They should have stayed there a little more.
I get it. It's like the ghost town, the literal ghost town almost.
Yeah.
So I get that they couldn't spend all their time there. But I did really like the look of that. I thought they really sort of nailed this dingy, it's cloudy there, it's polluted, it's gross, you understood the danger of that place, and also it just looked fascinating.
Yeah. I think the cinematography in this movie is good. Like, there's that, and then I think the mountain looks great too. There's always a bunch of clouds, and that scene, I don't know how to describe it, because it's almost tranquil when the hot air balloon just kind of floats out of the clouds and gets closer.
Yep.
Like, complete silence, we just watch very little motion, just standing still watching it pass by.
I would say the silence of this movie is also a big plus. As far as like setting a mood, there's very little music in this movie.
Right.
And I think that works to its benefit as opposed to like over scoring.
Yeah, they could have done that easily.
And instead they decided to go minimal with it. Should we take a break and then come back and keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll try to make it to that last ship before.
We'll see if we can get there before takeoff.
We won't.
And we are back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
You know, I wasn't going to tell the audience this, but this segment was actually recorded 3 hours before the rest of the episode. We wanted to do that little tie-in.
We're recording
time
this
thing.
separately at very different times. It'll all just fall right in place.
I know what Dad's going to say.
Well, let's talk about the timeline.
Okay.
Does it work?
I'm not a good judge of that, okay? Partly because I was confused by the planes part in a lot of this movie. And that's kind of how they tied it together. So, like, at the end, I was kind of lost.
Yeah, I don't think that as long as you understand that all the storylines are happening at different times, but also overlapping.
Yeah.
I think, and if you can separate the stories that you're watching, you know what I mean? Like,
I can do that though. I've seen shows that do that. There's like a zombie apocalypse show on Netflix that did that.
yeah,
But like, I don't know.
it
It overlapped a little too much.
a little bit, and it got hard to keep track of. Not where everybody was, but when everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was good at putting in reference points. Like the planes are flying over and they see, excuse me, they see the Dutch boat.
Yeah.
That the soldiers are on. You see that sinking and they're abandoning ship.
And then we get to see
that
it later.
Like 15 minutes before it. We see it from their point of view. So these reference points happen, and basically everything kind of converges at one point that I think kind of ties it all together. But it is jarring to watch, and I wonder if that is partly intentional. Like, war is jarring, war is traumatic, war is confusing. We want you to feel a little taste of that. So you are a little disoriented while watching. You know what I mean? Like the idea of being like a war simulator without really shell-shocking you.
Well, I think if you wanted to do that, do one story. Stay within a character. Do what is 1912?
1917?
1917, yeah. Do what they did with the, like, one shot.
I haven't seen that.
That's, neither have I, but, like, it's a war movie. It's a point of view.
Right.
It's singular. I don't know. I feel like it being disorienting was a negative.
I think it
like,
can be.
I shouldn't have to do the work of putting this together. Like, you can make it fun but like it should be easier than that.
I do think it was a little unnecessarily complicated, but it wasn't like a deal breaker for me. It didn't make me hate this movie.
I think it just messed with the climax a bit.
I don't know that there was a singular climax to this movie, though.
I would call it like the when the boat was leaking the oil.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like that was the main. We had a big build up to that.
You're probably right. When all the civilian boats arrive at Dunkirk and everybody's cheering and they're saving the men from the transport and
I feel like that was written to be a climax, but it doesn't feel like one.
It's more like just a triumphant moment as opposed to a climax of any one story. It is the point where it converges the most, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, and then the captain sees the pilot, right? Because the two planes go by. And then he lands on the beach. Well, he shoots the one down and then lands on the beach, right? That's what...
Yeah, there...
I don't even remember what happened at the end.
Yeah, there is a...
Because there's a thing with he's losing fuel, or he's unsure how much he has.
Right. He's on his last bit of fuel. Right, that happens right after that in the movie, but I can't remember exactly where in the timeline it happens. Like... I think it's right around there anyway.
Someone needs to make an Excel spreadsheet, okay? And
it is, because they had picked up the other pilot not long before then.
Right.
And that wasn't far off from where he was then, because he had like 15 gallons of fuel left at that point. And he was in sort of his home stretch to Dunkirk. So... yeah, it was right around that same point. What a tragic, what a triumphant and then tragic end for Tom Hardy's character, though.
Yeah, you kind of get to see him live out his victory, though.
He lives out his victory very shortly,
right?
And then he's taken by the Germans.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Is this movie also? This is a battle.
Yeah.
This is not... the war's not over.
Right.
It was going on before this movie. It's going to go on after. And
there are casualties. There are people we spend time with, like the Frenchmen, who don't make it. You know?
Yeah.
These people we put the entire movie into. And you know Tom Hardy, his character, I'm sure was killed. I think the implication is, look, at best, German POW camp. None of it's good. But yeah, like so much death, so much, there's nothing, I mean, you want to talk about propaganda, there's nothing glamorizing war in this movie, I don't think.
Right. These people are miserable.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing.
I feel like this is, and there was a big trend of this when Saving Private Ryan came out, and that Spielberg really was striving to show war in a very violent, graphic way that didn't make it look cool. It was jarring and terrible, and the first half hour to 45 minutes of that is the D-Day invasion. And it's freaking brutal. It's just and I feel a little bit like Nolan was trying to just make that movie. You know what I mean? Like, there's a
Yeah.
whole other story that happens after D-Day that is the crux of that movie. But I feel like Nolan was like, yes, this movie, this one specific battle, that's what I'm going to do. And this wasn't even like necessarily the Battle of Dunkirk. This was them trying to evacuate.
This is the aftermath.
This is them trying to get the hell out of there.
This is backing out of the parking lot.
Yes. So this was a very specific sliver in time. You're right. This wasn't some dumbass movie where they're like, oh yeah, if we win this one battle, it's all over. It all just falls apart.
It's like dominoes.
Right.
It all falls.
And it's like, no, this was one campaign. And and they lost. It was a losing battle, which is, I don't feel like it's very much we get to see a movie about a battle that was lost by our side. You know what I mean?
Well, that brings up, was it lost? Like, was it truly lost? Because how do you win a battle?
By taking control of the area. So by that metric, yes, they lost. They lost control of Dunkirk.
They did, but they gained. Well, I don't know if they gained.
They lived.
They lived another day.
But they lost the battle and they retreated and gave up their footprint on that specific place. That's how they score a battle as won or lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're right. The movie's point of view is every person we get out of there is a win. Mm-hmm. Whether they turn around to fight again or whether they just go back to England and go home. They survived this terrible, terrible thing.
They lived.
Right. I think we saw that in The Blind Man handing out blankets. He says, he's saying well done to everybody. And he says, well done. And I think it's Harry Styles' character says, all we did is survive. And he says, that's enough. Like,
yeah,
this old man has probably seen some shit. Maybe he fought in World War I. Maybe he's just an army vet who gets it. Like, but he's happy that they're home. This is an old blind man who's volunteered to hand out blankets.
He's trying to help.
And that's I think very typical of the war effort of World War II. People wanted to help. There were Americans who wanted to go to war before the United States actually got involved.
Right. People were trying to protest to like.
Right. They wanted involvement. They understood what was going on was wrong. They understood how dangerous Hitler was. Mm-hmm. And there were people who wanted those refugee boats full of Jewish refugees to be brought in, where the government turned them away.
Right.
And I can only imagine if it's being fought in your backyard, how much more you want to help out, So yeah, they have people handing out tea and bread and,
And the women who were working on the boat or something.
Nurses
like
and
caregivers
and things like that who, were also, please, go downstairs. How about, oh my God, that just brought me to when they get on that ship, they do manage to make it on that first ship.
And then it instantly like blows up.
Well, they go inside and they close the door. And it's like, oh my God, I feel like the claustrophobia of, you just saw a ship get sunk. And now you've been locked in this sardine can, and there's no way I would.
I didn't even think about it.
The French guy who stayed out on the deck, I'm like,
he knew.
That guy is a smart one, because oh my God, that was anxious, man.
That's one of those scenes where before the ship got blew up, like it's one of those downtime moments, like. Yeah. Where they're grabbing a snack, or when they're on the beach and they're just standing in line like it's recess.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know, there's something in those moments where it feels like, oh, this could be any day, any time. It's just people.
Right. It's quiet again, calm before the storm kind of thing. I think. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything? Oh, I did have the timeline thing that to double back to that. That is very much like a Christopher Nolan thing.
Oh, for sure.
Memento, Interstellar, Batman Begins, Inception, Prestige. They all play with flashback. They all play with time in weird ways. I don't think any of them did it as confusing as this one was.
This one's the most interesting because it's not tied into the plot. There's no one with a dream, heist or anything. It's just,
and it's not a flashback.
The way
it's not somebody fighting and then it like, how did I get here? And then a flashback to him joining the army or something like that.
You know what? I'm actually switching back on board. I think I like that it's like this.
Okay.
Because this is like the war movie of all war movies. In that it's able to show every aspect. It's able to kind of line up like the timing that things happen in. And like put them all together when they don't normally go together. You kind of have to, if you told a normal chronological story, you kind of have to go, oh, well, this has to go before this, even though it's like the middle of the movie. And this is a very like energetic point in the scene.
Right.
Like you can move it around, you can play with it.
Yeah.
He's telling kind of like the stories get to dance with each other. I don't know if that's too...
No. I think I know what you're saying, that it almost frees itself of any actual structure.
Right.
And then they just sort of bump into each other like a lava lamp, kind of blobs going all over the place.
I love when things experiment like that. It's just the problem, you still have to have that like story structure of like the arc, the going to the climax and then falling. I think that's the only thing that this movie did wrong. So it forgot to tie it back together.
It didn't tie it back together in a definitive way where all the characters met up and finished the movie together. Everybody was still going on their character arcs. They intersect at one point, but then they keep going. You know what I mean? So you're right. It doesn't tie together neatly. It just sort of, everything just passes each other.
Right.
Boy, experimental might be the best way to put that, because I think it is a really kind of ballsy move to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, seeing as he wrote and directed this movie, it feels like that was very specifically his vision for what this movie was going to be. You know what I mean? He wasn't handed a script that he cut up and wasn't sure how to put back together. Much like Quentin Tarantino does. He's like, I'm going to go all over the place on this. But what Tarantino does is he bounces around and then brings it back to... I guess that's what I'm going to line this up next to is...
Tarantino?
Pulp Fiction specifically.
Okay.
Because Pulp Fiction is telling...
You gotta be careful. Spoilers. I haven't seen this.
It's fine.
Okay.
But Pulp Fiction tells like 3 short stories. 4.
All right.
4 short stories. It's like 4 chapters.
Yeah.
Some characters are in different stories. So things intersect with each other without ever necessarily tying all of them together into one cohesive line. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This character is doing this one day, and then he's doing this later on. And then, in between there, here's this other story about this other person, and that first character walks through this time.
Right. Well, it kind of matches the chaos of real life.
Right. And that is it. The randomness, the chaos of people in a specific world bumping into each other. And I think that's what this did. The difference being there's so many characters in this that it feels more chaotic. And I think that's by design. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say it's by design.
I think maybe. I don't know.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. It may not be. It may be a happy accident or an unfortunate accident, depending on your point of view.
Is it just me, or does this movie feel like someone read a textbook on World War II and then kind of like did their research and like picked out like this is gonna be a great example of like all of these things that I want to show in war?
It could be. It could be a to me it feels less like a mission statement about war and it feels more like he read different articles, different interviews, different books about different aspects of Dunkirk, and we're like, oh, what if these all overlapped? You know,
right?
Like this many people, he could have read 4 or 5 different accounts from people who never encountered each other, but saw all the same things going on at the same time.
Because it's kind of like this movie is fiction in that it doesn't all, like, none of this all happened, but, like, each individual story is something that could have happened.
Right. Like a historical fiction account. Right. Or bits and pieces of it are, characters may be an amalgamation of 4 or 5 different actual people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to point at something else that did Deadwood. The TV show Deadwood is based on some actual historical things from the settling of the town of Deadwood in the 1880s. But a lot of license is taken. So there's sort of broad strokes truths in it, and some people that are representing real people, some characters that are representing real people. And some people are like, they just straight up are like, oh, here's like 4 or 5 people who existed in this town. Let's roll them into one character.
It's kind of what you have to do when you're creating something.
Right. And it's just sort of like, yes, this is historical fiction. Yes, it is based on some actual historical events. We've taken some storytelling license. And I think that's perfectly fine to do, especially if you're going to honor what this event was about. You know what I mean? And say, this was about Brits getting back home and surviving and regrouping to fight fascism another day. Keeping these men alive. And I think that's a really interesting way to do it. I'm also totally speculating about what this was. Like I said, I don't know about the Battle of Dunkirk. I'm not going to pretend like, oh yeah, well, what actually happened?
That's part of the thing is, like, you should never take historical fiction and, like, this was the event.
Yes.
Rose and Jack were not on the Titanic. It never happened.
I hate when people watch movies and they pretend that, oh, well, this is what it happened. Even, like, biopics about one person are heavily like
so much
bullshit in them, and people are like, hey, Johnny Cash did this. Like, no, that's not what happened at all.
George Washington could not tell a lie.
It's pretty wild, but this did make me kind of curious about battles like Dunkirk. Your mom's grandfather fought in Bar, France, and helped liberate this little village in France from Nazis who were occupying.
It's really cool.
Like, there's these little slivers of the war that we never learn about here. And, I know about Bar, France because it's in Christie's family history.
This is recent enough that, like, all of these events still have implications and impacts.
Sure.
On, like, the modern day.
It's less than 100 years ago.
Right.
10, 20 years ago, there were World War II veterans alive. Not very many left at this point. But,
Yeah.
you could talk to somebody, conceivably, who was there.
I feel like
that's pretty wild.
I feel like not anyone, but like anyone you ask, if you're like, hey, did you have a family member who served in World War II? Like,
yeah.
Somewhere down the line, or like a cousin or something.
In the same way, I think a lot of people today could say that about Vietnam or Korea, even.
Right.
My grandfather was a Korean war vet. He died just a couple of years ago. But yeah, for us, it's a little more contemporary.
Some more recent.
Is somebody in your family serve in Vietnam? Well, 9 out of 10, probably somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a wild movie. Do you have any, before we wrap up? Do you have anything else? Like, would you watch this again? Would you recommend people check this out?
I would watch this. I wanted to point out a quote that stuck with me. So I actually looked up the script, and this is at the point when the civilians on the yacht, they've rescued this pilot who crashed into the water, and he's trying to go back. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He doesn't want to go to Dunkirk.
You're talking about the first guy.
Yeah, this is the first one.
Yeah, he's not a pilot, but yeah.
No?
No.
Okay.
He was on one of
He was on a fighter plane, right?
No, he was on a ship that got torpedoed.
Oh, okay. I'm confused
the pilot
now.
was
Okay.
the guy that they picked up later on that they had to get out of the...
So this is the shipwrecked guy.
Yes.
And he says, this is a pleasure yacht. You're seeking weekend sailors, not the blood navy. A man your age, and he's talking to the old man here. And the old man says, men my age dictated this war. Why are we allowed to send our children to fight in it?
I remember that too, yeah.
So he's basically saying, people my age decided on this war. Right. I should be allowed to help. I shouldn't be sending my son to die in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which he already did.
Yes, and
this man knows the cost of war.
Right.
And understands that he can make a difference and help save other people. And I think that's a really good quote to pull out. Because there's another quote from Hunter Thompson where he says something about when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
He said he immediately was like, oh, here's another reason that we're going to have to send our young people off to die.
It's sad but true.
And he knew that this was going to bring us in this endless war, that we're still involved in.
Yeah.
And he said, it's in one of the documentaries about him. He says, I'm sick and tired of old men sitting around dreaming up ways to kill young men. I'm paraphrasing.
I've heard that.
I'm tired of old men sitting around dreaming up ways to send our young men off to die. I'm in the ballpark. But yes.
It's the sentiment that counts.
The idea and the way we see in this movie that, they send civilian boats through waters full of German bombers and submarines, as opposed to sending their navy to come pick. You know what I mean? Like what a chicken shit move to say, send civilians, get out what we can, otherwise forget it. I mean, because they're looking at it.
When that general says, like, they're saving them for the next battle or something. Yeah, that's...
Because that's how the military keeps score. We lost that one. We're not going to dump any more of our resources into a lost battle.
Whoa. Why are you still going on about that? We've got this new one that we're planning. Yeah.
The human cost is never really brought in. I know there's a lot of arguments for The military has to look at big picture, and they have to, you know, they're looking at the war as opposed to this battle. They know that they're going to lose X number of soldiers, you know, like, but it just is so cold, and it's, you know what I mean? Like, and
it's chilling.
It really is. And you bring it into a climate that we're in now where everybody is pro-military, is pro-veteran, and this, that, and the other. They send you off to serve. They come back. They don't take it. You know, the veteran suicide rate is very high. The post-war care is not good. The PTSD care is not good. It's not what it should be, I'll say.
Right.
And the idea that the government cares about its soldiers is one that I can't believe anyone still believes in. And
or that this is just kind of like the cost of doing business. That's the sentiment that a little upsets me.
Yeah, and yeah, it is. I think it hits home in a time where that has become very, very evident after 50, 60 years of watching this kind of thing, you know, through Vietnam and all the way up through today of not treating PTSD and not taking care of soldiers when they come home. To see that, oh yeah, all the way back, even in this war that we all kind of agree was justified and for a greater good, like, these attitudes have always been there. It's always been the top brass, and you're the peasants who are allowed to go kill and die for this greater good that the rest of us will enjoy.
And you know, even this like yacht owner is more understanding than the British government in that he's like, this person has shell shock. He has PTSD. He's not thinking clearly, and like he really gives them a lot of space, and it's great. Nice to see.
I really enjoyed. I didn't enjoy, but I really was. I thought it was a great part when they're picking up the soldiers, and he says, "Be careful with him," because George is down there. Yeah. They say he's dead. He's like, "Well, be careful with." You know, and then they very like respectfully like cover him up and they put him to the side. And then Cillian Murphy says, you know, is he going to be okay? And he's just like, yeah. Like he kind of teaches his son that like shell shock is not this thing to lock in the room and ignore. He's like, we got to be careful with this guy because he's very fragile right now. Like
he didn't want to hurt the boy.
No.
That was an accident.
He felt bad about it. Yeah. Even though he doesn't know he's dead. Like it's really tragic. And that's a very personal story that we see of that.
It's kind of the most noble, like heroic sort of like send off that they give to any character in this movie.
Yeah, by putting him in the paper.
Well, yeah, and like how intimate his death was. He got to talk with his friend and this thing.
And it wasn't like a hyper violent or horrific. I mean, he kind of dies off screen, basically.
Right.
Where like the French guy getting trapped in the boat that's sinking.
They keep coming back to it.
Oh my God, it's brutal.
It's like, please just let him die already.
Can we cut away from this? But I think the other thing about Cillian Murphy that I thought was interesting is his character, very fragile, very broken.
That's not the case. Like, we have room to change.
Yeah.
So, like, this movie is pointing out the Earth is changing. If we stick with it and make our changes fast enough, we can change with it and we won't die out. We can avoid this whole movie ever happening.
Well,
we can avoid being stuck in a bad movie if you help the environment. And I think that's the message of this movie.
I think yes, I will agree. That is the message of this movie. I just don't think it executed super well.
I know. I was just trying to make the joke of they're threatening us with being stuck in a bad movie forever.
I mean, well, yeah. Yeah, I felt like I was stuck in this movie for 2 hours, even though this movie's only an hour and a half.
I'll pick a longer one for our next one.
Man.
I'm kidding. I'll have to redeem myself after this episode.
It's fine. Look, this just didn't connect with me. I'm not bagging on you for
it is a weird pick though, because it didn't super connect.
You've had some
I have a better connection with this, but like, I just wanted to talk about how it sucked. Sometimes it's worth talking about how a movie is bad.
You wanted to talk about the themes of this movie.
Yeah.
And, I mean, honestly, there are probably better movies for talking about this theme that get it across better. You know what I mean? Like, we get in the weeds talking about this because it's just so messy getting there. But I just think, I don't know. I feel like there are probably better like we said. WALL-E. We
really could have just watched that.
We could have watched WALL-E, and
we could have
probably had a lot more fun.
We could have watched and read I Am Legend.
We could have, yeah.
These are all better episodes that you are not listening to.
You're not getting that
audience.
Episode. Yeah. Look, I don't know, man. Like this. This movie is what it is. I'm sure there's an audience for it. It's just not me.
Right. I also want to say this movie implies that Alpha Centauri would be a good place for humans. It would not be. Please don't move there. It is dangerous.
If you want to get into like what is scientifically accurate,
no,
I can tell you that changing the location of a transport ship is the most impractical thing I've ever heard of.
Like launching?
Yeah, the weather change. We're changing the launch site. What? The launch site? Not the time?
Yeah, no, we moved.
We're moving
everything.
The ship. Oh, and everybody who's on foot and making their pilgrimage here. Guess what? We're farther away now.
We're also taking 10 hours off the timer because we hate you.
It is like they didn't want to take anyone. They're like,
it's Delta Airlines. They're just giving up.
It was as soon as they said, they're changing the launch site. I'm like, the launch site? What? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. There's a bunch of stuff like that in this movie where it's just sort of like,
we needed this for the plot, so it happened.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, we're low on helium. We have to go to the city. So they deflate the helium that's in the balloon to go get more helium instead of getting the helium and bringing it back. Not all of the things in this movie that just were so impractical but needed to happen to push the plot forward instead of finding a plot solution on the page that actually made sense. Just it adds to the patchwork quilt that is this movie.
Which in an apocalypse movie, like, that's the whole point, is there are so many obstacles. Like, that is the heart of an apocalypse movie.
Right.
And then to just be like, we'll do this ridiculous thing to get around it.
But yeah,
okay.
Doing a ridiculous thing is one thing. It just things that don't even make sense in the world that you've built. I don't know, man. This movie's a mess. That's where I'm landing on it.
Okay.
And you know,
I think with streaming services, science fiction, I'm sorry, not always the best.
It's tough.
Which is a shame. Like, it is hard to find good quality sci-fi.
There is I'm just going to make this last point about characters who connect. There is I think it's a Netflix movie with Ellen Page and Shannon Woodward. Have you seen Into the Woods, I think it's called?
The musical?
No. Not the Snow White thing.
Okay, I don't know.
It's essentially like these two sisters are alone in the woods, and it's some sort of apocalypse happens, or post-apocalyptic world, and they're living in the woods, and it's like a survivalist movie.
Yeah.
And that movie is also slow, and it's a slow burn sort of Netflix movie like this, tonally very similar, but I connect to those characters. Like, one of them has to decide, we think there's a survivors colony, across the country. One of them has to, one of them wants to go, one of them doesn't. You understand that dilemma. You understand the hard choice these characters are making. Mm-hmm. It's not a great movie, but it does manage to connect you to the characters. And that's what sells a movie.
It puts the effort in to where you care about the premise.
It's written in a way to where I gave a crap how things shook out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
sometimes it happens. Sometimes a movie just doesn't hit where it's aiming for.
I think we're 0 for 2 on Netflix movies so far.
What's the other one?
The Old Guard. For me. I know you like The Old Guard. I got a lot of messages about
good.
I was too hard on The Old Guard.
Keep messaging him on that. Hammer it home.
You know what? Fuck all of you. The Old Guard sucks.
There will be a sequel, and we will be watching it. Or at least I will be, and maybe I'll just put a mini one, like, Dad didn't want to sit down for this one, so I'll just tell you my thoughts.
This is the hill I'm going to die on.
You know what? You don't even have to watch the second Old Guard. You can just sit in on the episode and criticize.
How about the next one? You watch the movie, and I'll read the graphic novels that it's based on, and we'll compare.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, you heard it here. It'll never happen. Anyway. What else you got on this one? Are we about wrapped up, or
I'm
more points?
I'm done. I really like the way this movie depicts biology. I think it hits my niche interests of science and evolution.
Okay, pretend this movie is being served to a general audience of non-scientists. That's where this movie fails.
Right, that's the thing. Well,
this is not an educational film.
I know.
And that's, I mean, like, scientifically accurate, yes. World building, yes. Themes, yes. That doesn't make a story, Like,
I know, yeah.
It's got to all connect, and that's where they didn't do the work.
It's just the more minor details that I like. Yeah. I think they put their efforts in the wrong place.
But do you think that makes it more or less tragic that that the movie as a whole doesn't come together? Because for me, it's almost like, oh my God, it's all there except the most important part,
I think it explains. Like every new detail, we're like, oh, they really put a lot of effort into this. It's like, that's where all the story...
Their focus, yeah.
That's where all the time went.
Yeah, it could be.
So that's all I have. That's been I.O.
That has been I.O.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to watch this again.
I owe you an apology.
You don't. We gotta talk out of it. It's fine.
All right.
Hey, we bring some turds to the table sometime. It happens. It's cool. Let's move on to shoutouts. What do you got?
All right, my shout out for this week is a book. It's called Hot Tips for Teachers, a collection of classroom management ideas. And it's just something I picked up out of the blue last week, and I've been flipping through it, and it has a lot of useful tips. I work
for teachers?
Yeah, I work at an elementary school. I'm a paraprofessional, which means I'm an assistant to teachers. That's paraplegic.
Oh, my vocab is way off today.
Yeah, it's one of those days. But yeah, you encounter a lot of different teaching styles. But this is one of those books that I really agree with the attitude that this is written by two teachers. Anne Salisbury Harrison and Frances Burton Spuler, I believe.
Spuler.
And yeah, I really agree with their methods, and they have a lot of it's alphabetically organized, so you can look up like classroom library or child abuse or open house.
How to abuse
And
children is not the kind of tips I'm looking
right.
for.
But it'll have advice on all of that and
Really?
like so much more.
So it's sort of like not any one thing, like how to engage your kids or how to.
No,
it's like an across the board.
Right.
Kind of.
It's very broad. Here's some crafts you can do. Here's how you occupy time. Here's it's a lot of useful tips. I don't think it's like the sole resource that you should be using to run a classroom. But I think it's one of those things it adds on techniques that you can use for different things.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good read. So that's, if we have any teachers in the audience, or non-teachers, whatever you want, you should read that book.
You know, I taught very briefly just one art class for a few years, and honestly, a overview resource like that could have helped me get started, I think, in a lot of ways, because there was I just in that 1 hour class per week that I did over the course of 4 or 5 years, I learned so much, and I learned it on the fly, and also I tapped some of my teacher friends for advice here and there.
Yeah, working with kids is not easy.
And yeah, like a book like that, I'm sure would be super super handy. So that's really cool.
What are you promoting this week?
I am promoting a YouTube channel of Patrick H. Willems. He is a filmmaker, and he runs this YouTube channel, and he makes essays about, like video essays about movies, about movements in movies, about certain directors, about all kinds. He just released one on the Disney movie from the late 80s, early 90s, Dick Tracy, about the movie based on the comic strip Dick Tracy, and it's actually just it's such a crazy movie. And in the era, he's comparing it a bit to modern superhero movies and comic book adaptations, and also like Warren Beatty's career.
So I've never even heard of that movie. It sounds
it's
cool.
probably on Disney Plus, honestly, and it's a crazy freaking movie. But yeah, he had one recently about baseball movies. He has them about soundtracks.
So like just general like aspects of filmmaking.
Or he's also he did one was really good. Do Kevin Smith's movies hold up from 3 months ago? Which I was a big Kevin Smith fan in my early 20s, and I have contended that it does not age with you. They are meant for a certain age group. I know a lot of people my age who still love Kevin Smith movies. Some of that stuff I would contest does not come forward very well.
That happens with a lot of things.
Yeah, it does, and that's perfectly fine. I think you're a great age to watch Clerks and think it's a brilliant movie that's going to connect with you.
Would I connect? Like, that's the thing is,
I think you would.
Some movies, is it like, is this for young adults, or is this for young adults who were young in the 90s? Like, you know?
No, it's about early 20-somethings with trying to figure out their life. Like, it is a movie for a certain age group. And some of the comedy, I think, comes forward fine. And some of Kevin Smith's other stuff, like Red State, when he really tried to break away from that kind of comedy and do some darker stuff, I think it was pretty cool.
Right.
But
I'm not a big fan of his whole Christmas apology videos for hitting on people at parties.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was trying to compare him to Kevin Spacey.
Oh,
his
Jesus
whole
Christ.
Because I don't know who Kevin Smith is, but that's who I thought.
Yeah. Well,
not the same person.
That's very different. No, it's nothing that dark. But Anyway, Patrick H. Willems, I think he's really smart about film, and if you're interested in that, he also has this ongoing storyline where he's best friends with a coconut with googly eyes on it. It's a running joke that, for me, ran its course like a year ago. But
I think I've seen his channel before.
I'm sure I've sent you something.
Doesn't he have a video on like sound in the MCU? Going over like music, and that might be someone else, but I'm pretty sure it's him.
It could be. I've watched his stuff for a long time, and yeah, it probably is back there somewhere. He has a great one about Michael Bay, honestly, and you know, it just really kind of shows if you approach anybody, even somebody that everybody laughs at like Michael Bay, you can pick that apart, and there's some interesting things in there.
Right.
I think Patrick H. Willems does some good work. And
if you want someone to film an American flag, you call in Michael Bay.
That's what he talks about, is like he does have a style. It's
right.
What it is, but like there's it's pretty interesting stuff. If you're into movies, if you listen to us ramble on this long, and you are able to put on a 45-minute YouTube video, I really recommend his channel. I think he's a good one to follow.
Yeah, he is.
On that note, I want to close out the shout-outs and thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It really helps our visibility, and it helps us grow the show.
That's right. And you know another way to help us grow? It's to tell friends about us.
That's right, friends.
Yep. So whether they're here on Earth or all the way in the orbit of Jupiter, please tell them about us, and maybe tell them that we review all good movies even when we don't. What is our pick next week? Because you are in charge. So
I am in charge.
You can get retaliation. I just want to let you know.
You know, I'm not going to pretend that I'm picking some...
I've never seen Independence Day.
...masterpiece of high cinema. You're in the ballpark. But Kong vs. Godzilla just came out. I have not watched it yet. There are plenty of shows going to be reviewing that. We're going to go a step backwards, and we're checking out Kong Skull Island.
Okay. But still same cinematic universe.
Same cinematic universe as the 2014 Godzilla started up, and then Kong Island
2018, I think.
Yeah, this is dropping right in the middle of this whole kaiju mess.
I've never actually seen this one. I've just seen the black and white and the one with Jack Black.
Both great movies, in my opinion.
I think so.
But, like, this is not high cinema. This is a giant gorilla kicking the shit out of other giant things and army guys. And we're going to have a good time with it.
One thing we can say is it won't be boring. And I think we need a change of pace.
I like this movie, and it has a great cast in it. And it's big, dumb fun, and that's what I want to bring to us. And I'm probably going to go from that right into Kong vs. Godzilla. So maybe a double feature of giant monsters next week.
Awesome. That's on HBO now.
That is on HBO. I think it's showing for a month, and then it goes away.
I didn't know it was going away.
Yeah, it's that
limited
thing
release
with is it Warner Brothers?
Yeah.
All their theatrical movies are going to HBO, but it's like it is limited. Like I think it's kind of like what this would run in a theater. We're putting it out for a month, then they take it away. It'll be back on there.
I like that better than what Disney's doing. Like, that creates rarity without upping the price.
Yeah.
Whereas Disney is just like, we're going to invent a new paywall for a service you pay for.
Yes, I know.
I still haven't seen their new movie, and I want to see it
on Disney Plus because I think that's the biggest scam going. But
I didn't care when it was Mulan because
I didn't care about watching Mulan.
Right. But that Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh yeah, I've actually heard really good things about that.
So
I'm the same.
I'm not paying $27 for it.
I'll wait for it to come to Redbox or something. But anyway, enough about me being a cheapskate. Yeah, we're watching Kong Skull Island, and we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, we are.
Social media. Sorry.
That's right.
I've only done this for 35 episodes now, whatever.
The internet exists, and we are on it.
We are.
You can find me at austin.n.rude on TikTok, and for Twitter, I'm AustinNRude and Old2 Review.
I am at philrude.com. That's my website. You can get all our episodes and all my social media links there. But if you want to cut straight to Twitter, it's at philrude. Instagram is at philrude75.
That's right. And don't forget to check out Hit Me One More Time this week.
That's right.
For me. And also, Dad has a few episodes on there, right?
Yeah.
They're not as recent, but they're still in the feed somewhere.
I was a guest further back, and I've sat in for Nick a couple of times as a guest host. I'm scattered throughout there. But David and Nick have a great show over there.
Fantastic job.
And if you haven't checked them out, please do. You'll find something from your childhood on there.
Right.
That's getting roasted and praised probably at the same time.
I listened to an episode about Buffy the other day.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Yeah.
The complicated worldview of Joss Whedon.
Right after the scandals broke, too.
That was really... And to be real about it, I think is really good. They handled that really well.
They did.
So, yes, Hit Me One More Time. Check it out. Austin, you want to read the credits?
Yep. We did everything ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.